So we are here with Evan from Raven. Do you want to give a brief introduction, including pronouns?
Sure, I'm Evan, one of the many Evans at Raven. My pronouns are they, them, and I had worked at Raven for 12 months. I started in January of 21, and I left in January of 22. So yeah, 12 months.
And were you doing contract work at Activision and then on to Raven as well?
Yeah, so I was a QA at Activision in Minneapolis
Mm,
for a few years, and I was senior QA. And then in 2020, I got laid off, and then I
yes.
applied, and I got a job at Raven.
So were you one of the QA testers that was affected with the layoffs?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
one of the 12 people.
Okay. So do you want to kind of give us the, high level of what that day was like for Raven? And, it seems like, I mean, from when, y'all came over to us at ABK and we're like, hey, this just happened and it's horrible. We need help. And I was like, yes, I've been through layoffs. They are horrible and it's hard not to take them personally, especially, when you're kind of told for months, yeah, work really hard and you're going to be full time and this is your foot in the door and just it doesn't matter how great you are at your job at the end of the day, they just will lay you off. So I would really love just your what happened that day for you and I guess everyone in the studio.
Oh, it was a Friday, and during that week we had an interview scheduled with the HR rep John and Brian Raffle, who's the studio head.
Hmm.
And the the first thing I thought was, this is very suspicious. Why are we having one-on-ones with these two people in particular?
Hmm.
So I didn't mention anything, or I didn't like ask anyone about it until Thursday or Friday of that week. I got no response from Brian or John, the HR rep, and our leads had no idea. So
Mm.
the couple leads that I report to had no idea. Um, they're like, we have our manager Robert uh, was tight-lipped about it and wouldn't say
Mm.
anything to our leads. Excuse me. And then throughout the day, people had their meetings scheduled, and the first couple sounded nice. Some of the people were getting promoted, getting
Hmm.
full time, offered benefits, and we heard through like those people that it was positive, and they were telling us, "Hey, this is good for us." And then the first person who got fired went in,
Mm.
and they said they were getting let go.
And I'm sure it was just panic on the floor.
Yep, we were. I don't remember if we were all talking in a Zoom or if it was like off of on Discord or something, but we were just like, this is messed up. So then I messaged John. I was just like, hey, if I'm getting fired, I'd rather know right now on Friday than have to wait till Monday,
Right.
because we had our meeting scheduled Friday and then up until I think Wednesday of the next week, which was once we realized what was happening, we were like, no, this is not going to fly. And then something happened with Brian and John where they pushed several people's meetings up to Friday.
Mm.
And then one after another, we went in there and they were just like, so we assessed the work and we determined that some of this work is seasonal or temporary, and we have to let you go.
Mm.
And they said very specifically that we're not letting you go on bad terms and you could reapply in like whenever the positions are open again. I was just like, okay, thanks for taking the time to talk to us, but it's kind of messed up.
Yeah, I've gone through layoffs at Activision and it just sounds so similar. There was actually a joke on the floor of our QA like else or sorry, QA and El Segundo. Thank you. El Segundo, Los Angeles, where if they called you into the break room for like pizza or ice cream, it was like everyone was just going to get let go. So it was weird. At the end of Q4, a bunch of suits walked in and we were like, oh, this is cool. And then, yeah, like you said, one by one, people are brought in and either told, hey, we're gonna extend your contract or we're gonna let you go. And it almost feels like it's a raffle. Like it just feels like they just pull it out of a hat. They don't tell you like, you didn't do anything wrong. And it's like, well, why can't you keep me? Or like, why can't you afford to keep me? Especially with a game like Warzone. And it just was really shocking, especially after all of the press and everything that was going on within Activision Blizzard prior, and then Raven just getting blindsided with these layoffs where it was so out of left field. Everyone was just super shocked over it. But yeah, I mean, again, like, sorry that happened to you. I know that that's a horrible feeling, but thank you for coming on here and talking about it. And, what would you say kind of inspired you to start helping with like organizing and, the unionization efforts and things like that?
I think it's definitely something that I've been thinking about for a while. I've been thinking about it at Activision several
Mm,
times. I tried to bring it up to my coworkers, but nothing ever came to fruition. And I think the right people at the right time did the right thing at Raven. It was just those collection of people and timing everything. It was just this needs to happen now or else it's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it actually was really inspired by Raven because, ABK was already kind of working on organizing, dealing with everything that was going on with the lawsuit. And Raven just showed up and was like, this horrible thing happened to us. So, like, where's the torch? We're ready to run with it. And I thought that was amazing. And yeah, just super inspired by everyone there. But yeah.
I
Yeah, to
remember
that point, I think that, there have been talks of unionization in little pockets throughout Blizzard for the last few years. It's sprouted up every once in a while. Every time
Yeah.
there's a major, layoff, it usually comes to a head and then it kind of simmers down. So what was the timeline for this? When did these layoffs occur? And then how quickly did you all organize and start this movement?
so that layoff happened on a Friday. We started organizing directly. Well, we had been in talks before about just like general organization, but this was the event that really popped it off. And that was a very hard weekend for us because we were all on Discord or whatever communicating
Hmm.
and trying to figure out what our plan was. And we somehow
Yeah.
got everything together on Saturday and Sunday to where we said Monday is we're not going to come in on Monday. We're gonna walk out.
Yeah, the
It was
strike was insane. Like the amount of work that went into planning the strike and planning just making sure that we were all covered. Raven had already talked to lawyers, which was insane and awesome. So when they came to us, so I had a friend who worked at Raven previously, doesn't work there now, but just messaged me and was like, "Hi, I have friends at Raven Software who need your help." And I was like, "Where are they? Show me the Raven software people." And they were like, this is what happened to us. And I'm like, ah, yes, I'm familiar. Yeah, how can we help type thing. And we just started organizing. Like, I remember I was giving my toddler a bath, like with the headset on, like, all right, we need to have the strike fund. Like, I'll put it in my name. And, we launched a strike fund and we were just like, nobody goes into work Monday. And it was so quickly done. And just, it just was like everyone coming together in solidarity was like the greatest thing to see and witness, because it's something that we've been working really hard at ABK, and it's such a big, you know, company that it's hard to kind of get everyone on board with, here's why we're striking and here's what we're not going to accept from our leadership and things like that. But I think, like you said, it was just this one event that people at the studio were like, we're not accepting this. And that's something that Blizzard actually dealt with prior with the lawsuit and the response to the lawsuit. So we were very familiar with like, yeah, we're not going to accept this. And, we already did 2 walkouts at the time. So it's like time to actually initiate that full on strike and go from there. And yeah, it's just been a wild time. I feel like so much has happened during that time.
it didn't feel real, I guess, if you know what I mean. It's just like it just
Yeah.
happened. There was no like thinking about it. It's just like go forward, don't stop.
Yeah, and it's so wild to see like in organizing efforts where people just jump in and they're like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna work on a website. I'm gonna work on this. And yeah, and then CWA has really good resources for like training, for organizing, and just talking points. Knowing going into meetings what anti-union propaganda sounds like is so important, because they will use big words that sound scary and intimidating to try to, stop you from organizing, because obviously that costs a lot of money to them. And but yeah, I think workers now are kind of realizing, like, you can't say, hey, we have record profits and then lay off hundreds of people. It just doesn't make sense, especially in a creative environment like video game development. It just seems really weird and like bad labor and business practice. So it's good that we're kind of showing that bad nature of working in game dev. So
And momentum's so important when it comes to unionization. You just want to keep the engine going and the train going. And what do you have going on right now, as far as pushing this forward?
So we filed. Well, we didn't file. We asked leadership to recognize union.
Mm-hmm.
They said no. So now we have a hearing with the NLRB on Tuesday, I believe. So.
And I kind of want to talk about that. I think a lot of people who are watching this probably saw the letter that came out, or maybe it leaked. That it was the official response from the head of QA and from Raven. That was a very polite way of essentially trying to bust the union. I assume that did not go over well with everyone on your team.
No. So, for transparency, I've been semi-disconnected from a lot of the organizing now. I had to start a new job, so I took some time off for my own health, but I can say that it was just disgusting what they're trying to do with that message. And it just, like, at first I thought they didn't understand what a union was good for, but now it's clear that they're just ignorant, or they just don't want to accept it for their own reasons.
I think they know exactly what they're doing,
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
like, when Blizzard started kind of getting really, so we obviously had that mass agitation event, which was the lawsuit, and then the response to the lawsuit, which was just leadership dropping the ball over and over again, just showing like that they don't care about the workers. So like Josh mentioned, you kind of have to keep the momentum going in something like this, and it was easier because leadership kept dropping the ball and just responding horribly to everything that was going on. So yeah, like you said, it's disappointing to see these kind of tactics being used, but it's something that we're actually familiar with, because when Blizzard was kind of more openly talking about organizing, and that was the only way that we were going to have a voice, they do use those broad kind of megaphones to be like, consider the consequences of signing this binding legal document, which is just full of misinformation. And, I think they're trying to bank on, let's include all of Raven software, so that way if they go into a vote, they can get enough people to flip or switch to no. And they just don't want to recognize QA as their own union, which, I mean, QA is notoriously kind of shit on by every other department in game development. I just feel like QA is not considered developers, which is wrong, because the game can't ship without our work, so you're a developer. But yeah, I just feel that it's kind of a slap in the face how they're like, well, we're not going to recognize a QA union. We're going to give everyone the opportunity, because they know that maybe we can flip some votes over, or get that technicality. And it seems like something that they're doing a lot, because when you look at the lawsuit and the response to the lawsuit, they kind of try and wiggle around it a little bit. So you're kind of seeing that still, and it's kind of interesting to watch.
It's definitely, I think it's gross what they're trying to do. They're trying to discount or invalidate QA as a whole, basically. And like you were saying, QA is definitely always shit on. We're always separated from the devs. We're always basically just treated differently than devs. Like,
Yeah.
in all the studios I've been in, it's QA and the devs, even though we're all under the same team, essentially. It's just
Right. Yeah, I definitely get that, because I've worked at Activision and Treyarch before Blizzard. And Activision is pretty bad with the separating QA. And it's wild to me because you can't really get good quality assurance unless you're having those conversations with like design or engineering, right? You need to know what's being iterated on so you can like test against that thing, right? And we actually heard stories of testers being fired for emailing engineering or like emailing design, asking about the intention of something. And they're also very like, I remember at Treyarch, I was on the zombies team. They would trust one tester with the Easter egg, one tester, and all of us were on zombies. All of us had to do Easter egg runs. They would give it to one tester, and obviously the tester wanted job security, so they weren't going to tell you everything. They were just like telling you what to do in game, and then like engineers would come out because they were like sleeping, you know, in their room because they all have couches in their rooms because crunch. But they'd come out and be like, y'all are being too loud and just yell at us. It's like, we're doing high level zombie runs. I'm on level like 40. Hello. We need to be talking to each other. Yeah, like if I go down, you're going to have to help me. I have the ray gun, you know, it's just like, it's wild to think that QA as a discipline, it's so important to the quality of your game. Like you want QA to be advocating for the player. And just, it feels like it's almost designed against us in the actual day-to-day work because, you know, they don't want you talking to devs. They don't want you being too loud. It's almost like they think you're just like, hey kid, you know, you want to test some video games? Like, come sit down and test some video games. And it really is not like that anymore. So just interesting.
And I think that's kind of the perception among a lot of people is they think that QA is just people that get paid to play games. So Evan, would you mind running us through kind of like what your normal day-to-day looked like as a QA tester? It is a very technical role, and I'd love for people to kind of understand that side of it.
Sure. So Raven and Activision were very different, and my new position is also very different from those two. So I guess I'll tell you what I did at Raven, basically.
Sure.
Some of the stuff I did was when we got in, we would do verifies or regression testing. So previous issues that we wrote or other QA wrote, we would go in and go into the game and essentially try to reproduce the issue. And we would spend time on the issue and seeing if it happened or not, and fill out the issue and say whether or not it's open.
Yeah,
It's
I
pretty
think
standard in QA.
was the number that you would try to hit like 5, you know, to see if how many times it happened out of like 5
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
runs or something like that.
like
Yeah.
5 out of 5, or depending 10 out of 10.
5 out of 5 is a bad bug.
Yeah, it happens every time. Actually, those bugs are my favorite to test because bugs that are like, they happen sometimes. It's like, okay, what do I have to do to get this freaking bug to happen? And you will think of all the possibilities to trigger that issue. So yeah, 5 out of 5 is bad, but it's great to test because you're like, it's either there or it's
easy.
not. Yeah.
Other than that, of course, we had ad hoc testing, which is just going through anything in the game and finding bugs. So
That was my favorite.
Yeah, ad hocing is
That's-
like combing the desert, essentially. You like
Yeah.
go in and you're like finding everything wrong. You get a lot of like, I broke out of the map and did this weird thing and now everything doesn't work. So those bugs are fun. But yeah, like it's funny because at Blizzard too, we would have, you know, like you said, verification. We would do a majority. There'd be a huge list of, hey, here's are all these like high level show-stopping bugs that we need to make sure they're fixed. So you kind of get like a sheet of all the bugs, and you know you're not timed, but they want them within the next release. So you have to kind of make sure and get those high level issues first, and then kind of go down the list.
I was also on some other teams at Raven. So I'm sure, as you both know, Warzone is a game as a service, essentially. So it has constant updates. So what we would do on that team is we'd come in and the devs would give us a bunch of issues that they fixed. Typically, it would be like 5 or 6, but throughout the time I've been there, it got up to about 50, sometimes maybe 20 to 50 issues, which is a lot to verify on a new build that just gets pushed out. So we would have to, in a very short amount of time, go through the build and check the issues and report them back to the devs. So the update process for Warzone was basically, we test the update in the morning, and then in the afternoon it goes live. And the amount of updates that game has is insane.
Yeah,
Like
I can
we would
imagine.
test new updates every single day.
It kind of sounds like you were doing like some live ops work, so making sure that a fix is in a build that's going to get pushed to live, and then once it's pushed to live, verifying, validating, making sure that it's still there.
And like in a traditional, you know, game development cycle, usually at least there's like an endpoint, there's a finish line, and
Mm-hmm.
as the game gets closer and closer to release, like sure you're crunching harder and harder, but you know that there's going to be some like downtime afterwards that you're going to be able to catch your breath. But with games as a service, I didn't really ever think about this. You don't ever get that downtime. The updates
Mhm.
are always coming out. The content's always coming out. So that's rough. And I'm kind of wondering now, how when you all went on strike, how did that impact the development? Like, was it like a scramble where the devs like, first of all, I'm asking a lot of questions right now. Did any of the devs like blame you all? Was there some animosity there, or were they kind of like, no, we understand and we support, like, do what you got to do? What was
I
that
I
like?
don't I don't know for sure because we didn't have any communications with. I didn't at that time, but it sounded like they were scrambling essentially, and there was a lot of live issues at that time. A lot of major issues, like I think one of the skins would make your player disappear, and some of them would make the graphics really
A good
bad.
skin.
Just essentially, yeah. Um, and yeah, the game essentially went to shit. So
Yeah, like I remember being in the Discord and seeing other devs, like non-QA, talking about how the people around them were like telling them to enter a bug, and they were like, "No, that's not my job," you know. And I was like,
yeah,
"Yes,
Oh, wow.
do that, please," because it's
yeah,
important. QA is notoriously undervalued, underpaid, underappreciated, and it's nice to see, like, as horrible as like the game sucking is, it's nice to see, oh, our work that we did had an impact, and they probably should have treated us better, especially for games as a service that's always pushing out content, always pushing out updates. You want those 12 testers. Like, why would you even think to kind of let them go? It just didn't make sense, like, from any standpoint. So it was obviously, everyone was just in shock about it. So it kind of just all aligned, and the strike happened. And yeah, I mean, it was great because I remember in the Discord we were all just like trying to figure out like resumes and like how can we like tap networks and help, Raven land on their feet, and, kind of just at the same time pushing for workers' rights. And like, this is something we don't want to see in game development anymore. At least be human about it. Don't just like pull one person in and say, hey, you're getting a promotion. And then the next person's like, you did nothing wrong, but bye, have a new, find a new job. And it's really weird that that's something that happens in game development, and it just seems so out of place for a creative industry. So,
yeah.
yeah, just interesting and wild. But I did want to ask you, what is something that you hope to see out of like the strike? Obviously, Activision Blizzard leadership kind of stonewalled the employees. They called it a disagreement instead of a strike, which was interesting to me. And it's kind of weird that they like downplay all of the work that's going into it. But what is something that you have already seen, from that work, and then something you hope to see?
So personally, I would like to see the company recognizing its faults first and foremost.
That would be
So
great.
That would be
after the
great.
union, I
Well,
want them to publicly say that, hey, we messed up. We messed up big time, and we'll try to make it better. And then on that same day that they post a message, they actually act on it instead of just talking, which is
Hmm.
something that Activision has done a lot of.
Yeah, that's something that frustrates me a lot with Activision Blizzard leadership. It's always, we hear you, or like, we're committed to, like, they'll say we're committed to excellency, and then not do anything and think that that's enough. And it's almost like they bank on a short attention span,
Yeah.
because, when the lawsuit happened and the response to the lawsuit happened, where it was like, it's not true, and if it is true, it's old and out of context. It's like, well, is it true or is it old and out of context? Like, and it seems like they try to do the legal minimum required. And I think with the union, and why they're so afraid is because legally now they'll have to listen to their employees. So that is definitely something that we want to see, like actually prove that you're listening. Don't just say you're listening. And it's great that you called it out, because that is something that I was super frustrated with, and just constantly like, you say you hear us, you had listening sessions, but really it was just employees saying all the horrible things that they were experiencing, or things that should change. And it's kind of like, it's almost like they don't care, or they're like, okay, thanks for telling us, and then nothing happens. So like you said, some actions would be nice that day, right?
Yeah.
And
Nice
it's
little
funny
wage
because
increase would be nice.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
Like a
definitely.
livable wage, maybe? That would
Oh
be,
my God.
huh?
it's insane. Like Blizzard employees, if in QA, have to have at least 3 roommates to survive in
Yeah,
Irvine area.
especially in California. That's insane.
Yeah, and y'all are in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, I'm in
Yeah.
Minnesota right now.
Mhm.
But most of my coworkers are in Wisconsin, and
Yeah,
I think everyone has a roommate or a partner.
everyone.
Yep. So we
Yeah.
were making $16 or $15, something really poor, and then we got bumped up to 17.
Yep, I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. It's livable now. At $1 an hour, it really makes
Nope.
all the
It's
difference in the world.
so
That's
funny
ridiculous.
because like the jokes of like, executives where they're like, how much is a banana? $10? It's like they're so out of touch. They have to know that that's starvation wages. They have to know it, right?
Yeah,
Like
they can't
there's
just.
2 digits in the wage. Like you have to know that no one can survive off of that.
These
And
are all people who are probably in their, like late, 50s, 60s, who grew up in a time where the minimum wage was a livable
yeah,
wage. And I think they just assume that it's still like that. And it's really not. Not to mention that most of the people entering QA now are coming in with insane debt because, everyone went to college and got a degree, because at this point, it's hard to get into QA without a degree, without those connections, without that knowledge base.
yeah. And that's what's
Um,
so wild about it, right? Is it's called entry level and it's paid as entry level, but it's actually highly technical. You need experience and or recommendation to join. You can't just like video games and join. You have to like, I like video games and I beta tested for like all these things. And it's like it's weird because it's used as like a foot in the door, but that foot in the door, you need a lot to get there. And then to stay there is you need even more. And it's kind of like the nepotism Olympics at that point. It's like who likes you
Absolutely.
best. And
Especially at Activision. It's ridiculous.
especially at Activision. Yeah, I've gotten laid off twice from Activision. It's not fun. And it's always like, they'll be like, you did nothing wrong. By the way, you had 3 dupes, and they'll like say things to make you doubt yourself, where you're like
Mhm.
kind of reasoning like, oh, okay, maybe this is why I'm getting laid off, but really it's nothing personal. They're just bad labor practices. Where I think the problem, in my opinion, is Activision is this like publisher, right? And then you have actual studios that are developing the content, and Activision is thinking like a publisher, like, okay, we need to get this game out at a specific time. So we're going to mass hire a bunch of people and then have them work really hard on this game for months and then lay them off at the end, instead of like, let's have people on a constant cadence and, actually fix bugs and actually polish the content we're putting out versus like getting the DLC out, right? So I think it's just the problem of like maybe a little bit of out of touchness, as well as, being a publisher versus a developer, and just running everything like a publisher. And Bobby Kotick famously said, I want to take the fun out of making video games. And I feel like he succeeded in that. Because it definitely isn't fun to like, hey, we're going to hire you on a contract. If you do really good, we're going to hire you full time though. And by the way, like, bug everything, bug every single thing, bug a leaf clipping into a wall. They just want you like meeting quotas. And it's the weirdest thing in a creative environment. And it's always going to baffle me. And I don't know where that disconnect comes from, but it's just so fascinating. But yeah, kind of went off on a tangent there. I have a lot of things to say about Activision.
Yeah, me too. I have a lot to say.
But yeah, I mean, it's funny. Josh, you didn't work at Activision, right? You worked at Blizzard.
no,
But
I worked at my first gig was at Activision. Well, technically Vicarious Visions.
oh,
So
okay.
it's, yeah.
I love
supporting
Icarus
Activision.
missions.
Me too. But it was the same thing. I think I was there for 2 weeks, and then I was told there was a chance I would be laid off because the
At least you were
prototype that I
told.
was what's that?
I said at least you
Oh
were
yeah,
told.
no, fair point. Fair point. Yeah, the prototype I was working on, they axed it like 2 weeks into my
Mm,
contract there. I was like, cool, what am I gonna work on now? And thank God we got the Destiny 2 PC port.
nice.
We landed that contract pretty soon afterwards, so I got to hop on that. But there was a good chance that like after 2 weeks of getting this job right out of college with, just moved to a new city, an apartment sign and everything like that, there was a chance I'd be laid off, and I was like, wow, this is a great start to the video game industry. All the rumors were true. This
I
is
know,
awesome.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Evan, are you still working in video games or did you kind of branch off? I know like personally I wanted a break from video games. I've been in the industry for 7 years. I'm
Yeah.
just like nothing's changed. So yeah, I took a break, but just curious like where you landed and how you feel
Uh,
about it.
so for reference, after I left Activision, I was like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. Raven's my last shot.
Very fair.
So after Raven, I have some connections in other studios, so I was just like, maybe I'll give it one more shot. And so I applied to Santa Monica
Mm,
Studio, and that's where I'm at currently.
nice.
Congratulations.
So
That's great.
Thank you.
congrats.
That's a
Yeah,
big
Yeah,
congrats.
upgrade.
it's wild seeing how drastically different it is.
You can talk to
It's-
other developers.
Yeah, they'll come out and talk to us like a developer introduced himself to me over a call, and I was just like, this developer is talking
Talking to me.
to me. What?
Yeah, I get that because at Activision, like you would have to go to lunch at a specific time or not use a specific elevator because they don't want you interacting with other departments, which is really weird. So when I went to Blizzard, it's a culture shock, really, of like, wow, developer actually, like another developer cares about what I'm doing or like wants to talk to me. Very strange, but yeah, so happy you landed there.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. And as we close this out, I'm curious, what are your aspirations? Do you want to stay in QA and kind of move up to senior or lead QA, or do you have aspirations outside of that in art, production, design, anything like that?
So yeah, I'm a senior level QA, but at the studio, it's not like QA and then senior QA. It's just all of QA and then the leads, which is like
I was
it's
gonna
like
say it's nice when QA actually has a career path because Activision is notoriously abysmal in actually
yeah,
growing QA as a career path. And that's something that Blizzard did well, surprisingly. I was actually really excited for Blizzard because it's like you do senior test analysts and like they, take you a little more serious and you can actually have it as a career. Whereas in Activision, it's definitely, I don't know what they think QA is, but it's not it.
no,
So that's
but yeah.
awesome. I'm glad to hear.
As far as going outside, I have like interests elsewhere, like audio or design. I like the design aspect, but I really don't have any experience elsewhere. Like you're saying that you have to get a college degree, but I'm one of those people who just started at Activision, no college.
Oh, awesome. Not
Yeah,
burdened
and
by just crippling debt.
no.
That's
Um,
cool.
but for now, I really enjoy the QA at SMS, and I think it's a really good place to be. And I'd like to learn leadership there, especially at a different studio.
Yeah, that sounds lovely. Like myself, I wanted to get into leadership, and my whole thing was like, I've learned what not to do from Activision. And it's kind of like different going to other studios, and you're like, wow, QA is respected and treated well, and it's a career path here. And I really want that for Activision Blizzard. I really
Yeah,
want it for Raven. I mean, Raven as a studio is amazing, and I just wish that at the broader scale of everything, it just needs to catch up with everyone else, I feel like.
yeah,
So we're hoping to get there with the union and just kind of hopefully maybe it'll go across the industry and we can talk to people at Santa Monica Studio like, hey, what do you wish was better for the QA department or things like that. But I'm happy to see so much work going towards workers' rights, especially in quality assurance, because it's kind
yeah,
of like going into it, you're kind of told like you work in video games, you shouldn't complain type of thing.
It's definitely the department that needs a union the most. I mean, the whole industry does. there's not a role that wouldn't benefit from having
Agree.
representation. But I mean, QA is the one that no doubt would benefit the most from it.
Agree.
Yeah.
And democracy is great. Like democracy is great. Unionize if you like democracy. That's like my number one, just having that seat at the table, because companies like to do the legal minimum required, and they know with a union, like they have to legally do things. So instead of doing the ethical maximum, they're doing the legal minimum. And this is something that I'm hoping, these kind of efforts and everything that like Evan and I and other people in the industry are working on prove to be fruitful for the rest of the industry. I think it'd be great. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your experience and everything. And yeah,
Thank you.
I'm super grateful to have you here and to meet you. I know it's weird circumstances that we met each other, but
Yeah.
definitely keep us in the loop with everything going on with Raven, and even in your new studio, things you like, things you wish you would change. We definitely want to open up a dialogue across the industry and talk to people and get everyone's account of, what is it like in your department? What does organizing look like to you? And like, what do you hope to see for with the union? Because the films industry unionized totally. So I would love to see that for games, and any creative, because you can't like be inhumane and want people to make great products, Um, but yeah, again, thanks, and super excited to have you on our first show.
Oh, well, thank you. It's
Yeah,
been
thank you so
a
much for
pleasure.
being our first guest. And it was a
Yeah,
pleasure
you're our
talking
first
and meeting
guest.
with you.
Follow GWA on Twitter, follow Better ABK on Twitter. There's a gameworkersalliance.com where we talk about everything going on with unionizing. And yeah, that's kind of like your one-stop shop for all things Game Workers Alliance. Also, I want one of those sweaters. I didn't even work at Raven, but I just love it. I love the icon. It's so nice.
It just has this, and I think
Yeah.
the back is blank.
Aw, that's so really cool.